Does anyone know what the shoot button is? A, I think. Stay?
Halo, combat evolved, rated M for mature.
Well, I would think that...
It doesn't matter what you think, Bill.
On November 18th, 2001, I walked into my local Best Buy in beautiful Colorado Springs, Colorado. I just earned like $400 recently. I was 17 years old. I had been working as a ranch hand, basically. As funny as that might seem, I was a ranch hand for a little while. And I'd earned this money because I had intended to buy myself my own drum kit. Okay, because I don't play drums, all right? I play guitar, I play bass, I play piano, I sing, but I don't play drums. I still don't play drums because I rolled into this Best Buy and there were two big pallets laid out. And one contained boxes of the Nintendo GameCube, black and purple, and the other pallet had a bunch more boxes of the original Xbox.
In fact, if I press this little button here on the front, you'll see Xbox will actually start up. We can bring that video up. We can bring that video up.
And the Xbox had come out 3 days prior, and that day was the day that GameCube came out. And I looked at the Xbox, and I looked at the Nintendo, and the Nintendo's $200, and the Xbox $300, just like the PS2. And guess what? I didn't buy the Xbox. Why would I buy an Xbox? The Microsoft can make a video game console. That's ridiculous. No, I came home with a Nintendo and I was very happy. Rogue Squadron? What you're seeing here is the very first Halo reveal ever, right? You shouldn't have to say that more than a few times, but this was actually at Macworld, if you can imagine. Steve Jobs actually introduced this because Bungie had started developing it for Mac, but you know what? They had shipped a game previously that basically could cause anybody's hard drive to completely wipe itself when you installed the thing. So they were in a little bit of dire straits, was Bungie, so they sold themselves to Microsoft, who was headhunting at the time, yeah, because they were building their Direct Xbox, which, codename Xbox, which became just Xbox. It was called the Direct Xbox because it was the first console really in the marketplace at all that tried to standardize development tools, just like PC had done in Windows 95 with DirectX, which basically allows, developers to not have to worry about designing their stuff for all sorts of different parts, different processors, different chipsets, all sorts of stuff like that, right?
Oh, I know what the ladies like.
This game, Halo, okay? This is the reason I bought my Xbox, because I did buy the GameCube that day, the day that these things came out. But my friend had played Halo at another friend's house and had told me it was just the most amazing thing he'd ever played, ever. And I was a little skeptical, and I had been skeptical because, again, Microsoft is going to make a console. It just didn't sound right to me, and I wasn't about to take a risk. But lo and behold, man, I asked for it for Christmas 2002, about a year after it came out. I know it was then because we had just gone to see the Two Towers, the Lord of the Rings.
The Xbox is a breakthrough game console.
I convinced my mom to let me open it, and I did. And I played that thing, and I played the Halo on the S controller, which had just come out because the Duke was a little unwieldy, as you may remember. This thing was amazing, man. It was the most impressive game, first-person shooter console I'd ever played. It blew my mind. It blew the doors off of what consoles could do, what we thought of them as. And Sony, I think, was worried because Bill Gates basically had his team design the Direct Xbox because he couldn't stand that Sony was putting a high-powered, for lack of a better word, gaming PC, the PlayStation, That's how they thought of it then, in the living room. That's where he wanted to own, because he owned the den and he owned the office, but he didn't own the living room. So that's where this came from. That's where the Xbox came from. And let me tell you, this game sold it. It sold it. I think they said that half of all original Xbox owners had a copy of this game. If not for Halo, Xbox wouldn't be around in 2026 for us to say, look at it fall. Look at the fall of this amazing dynasty. It built the dynasty. Also, it built the dynasty. Xbox Live, that was a game changer. The communicator, the fact that you had to pay to play online, that was a forecast of things to come in a big way. You know what? And it also had an Ethernet port, which was pretty brand new. The Sega Dreamcast.
Sega Dreamcast games are now online. Jack into SegaNet through your Dreamcast console and join your countrymen.
Which had captured my imagination, but which had failed, obviously, Sega's last system. It had that Ethernet port. It had the ability to rip your CD music, the CDs, onto your hard drive and actually play them over the games you were playing. Xbox was amazing, but ultimately it didn't hit the success level that Bill Gates and Microsoft had wanted. Sony still won the PS2 Xbox generation, the 6th generation of consoles, and that's it, man. But what it did is it put their foot in the door, and it allowed them to basically release the biggest success that Xbox ever had. Can you guess what that one was called? So this beautiful game right here is called Grand Theft Auto 5. You may not know this, but there's a game coming out at the end of this year called Grand Theft Auto 6. And so this one came out 13 years ago, if you can believe it. It's been 13 years since we've seen a Grand Theft Auto. And that also means that it's been 13 years approximately since the end of the Xbox 360 era. And I'm using this game to illustrate the 360 because it kind of exemplifies to me, it happened at the end of the life cycle, but it exemplifies to me the strengths of the 360. Most notably, that Xbox was finally so successful with the console that, GTA wasn't just coming out on PlayStation anymore. Notoriously, Microsoft passed on Grand Theft Auto 3 back when they were still working on the Xbox One, right? So it was a PS exclusive. Well, this thing came out on both, right? And the reason, really, Xbox 360 was so successful, it's kind of many-fold, but it basically comes down to this. Right hardware, right price, great games. They just kind of went on throughout the course of the 360. The 360... They were selling it as the main console, right, for 8 years, okay, 2005, 2013. And in that time, they just went on this epic run of the games you want to play, okay? So you had Halo and Halo 2 on the first Xbox. This had Halo 3. This had ODST. It also had Halo 4, lesser extent, a good Halo game. It had Forza for the first time. It had the Call of Duty series, before it was the Call of Duty that we have now. It was still doing World War II exclusively back then. But, they also shipped the first Modern Warfare, okay, which turned the tide for that. There was just so much good stuff on this console. There was also the fact that, they built it to be... So the Xbox One, it had that Ethernet port. It could do Xbox Live. But this thing could do more with the internet, okay? Eventually you had apps. The first time I ever watched Netflix, and it wasn't a DVD in a little envelope that came to me in the mail. It was on my Xbox 360. Okay, there was media. You could download games. There was the arcade, Xbox Arcade, right? They just knocked it out of the park with this thing. One caveat: I don't know if you've ever heard this term. Red ring of death.
Microsoft hasn't specified the cause, but users say the console's cooling system just can't take the heat of a lot of play.
Mine just crashed this holiday season.
No! Again! What the? What the? Son of a? That is not the red ring of death. Bullshit.
I had 2 Xbox 360s that died of the old 3 red lights. So one of the cool things, it was a small thing, but one of the cool things the 360 could do, it had 4 green lights kind of around the power button. And if you looked at your controller, your wireless 360 controller, the light on your controller corresponded to the light on the Xbox, so you knew what player you were, right? So that was kind of a cool feature. We didn't think much of it. We turned on our 360 that day, and we're like, what's that? The Xbox isn't booting up. Well, we realized what it is. We did a little research. We found out that we could call customer service. It said so in a message that popped up on the screen instead of my game. And you were on hold with customer service for a while. They would just kind of send you one because they extended the warranty from 1 year to 3 years. This was a massive issue. And we're not the only folks who had 1, 2, 3 Xboxes die this way. Microsoft almost lost the game. And it was like system wide. It was a huge percentage of these consoles just were failing. A $300 console, $400. If you got the one with the hard drive, which I feel like you kind of needed. But they fixed it. They halted production, they took the time, they fixed it, they replaced all units, and then it came back stronger. They redesigned it. It came back even stronger. So this was the high point. This is the high water mark of the Xbox legend. It never did get any higher. And it definitely has gotten lower, but this, for just one moment, here in the September of 2013, which is when GTA 5 came out, it was all great. It was rosy. There was nothing they could do wrong. We figured the next Xbox, it had to be even better. But so did Microsoft. Sort of like PS3 was $600 and nobody really wanted it at first because Sony was a little high off PS2. That sort of thing happened to Microsoft as well. In a little system we like to call the Xbox One. What do you mean Xbox One? Isn't that the 3rd Xbox? Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Microsoft's Xbox announcing some landmark news today as it moves into the media business.
It can also control your TV and cable box.
Casual gaming, television, social, for both gamers and non-gamers alike.
So this is a red letter day. Is that how you say that? In the legend of Xbox, still the rise and apparent fall of Xbox. I was really stoked for this press conference. So excited. Both me and my wife, we were sitting in front of the TV watching. Because, Xbox... Look, the first conversation the two of us ever had was about Halo 2. This thing went off like a lead balloon. Man, it was not a good situation. The first thing that they said that troubled us was that it was for television.
Watch TV. TV remote. TV. Television.
Then they told us it had to always be on the internet, which, it's like... Back then, we lived out in the boonies. We lived out on the prairie, man. We didn't have internet access all the time, or even very, very strong or very fast. And then the last thing that they said, again, it was like a lead balloon catching on fire. Sort of like Forza Horizon 4 probably gave me some of the best gaming experience I had with the Xbox One. The setting is great. I love the UK. A lot of my family is from the UK. The physics are great. I like Xbox One. I didn't like it at first. And truly, that E3 where they announced theirs and Sony announced the PS4. And you know what? They dropped a lot of bombs, did Xbox. And Sony dropped a lot of good bombs, if there is such a thing. They undercut Microsoft by $100. And right then and there, I knew that I would not be an early adopter of Xbox One. And I ended up getting the PS4 day one. I did not regret that decision because that was just one of the best PlayStations ever made. I did eventually get Xbox One, and I didn't regret that either. It's just between the two consoles, it was pretty clear which one was designed for gaming and which was designed to do kind of a bunch of other stuff plus gaming. You know, Xbox, they didn't just announce that it was going to be $100 more, which they didn't know yet, because literally Sony did their thing the day after. They also made the Kinect.
We're bringing a new Kinect sensor paired with every Xbox One,
which was always an optional thing on 360. And you know, the Kinect is cool. It's really cool, but only from a hardware perspective. Because if honestly hardcore gamers never really used it, they don't really like it that much. I'm kind of in that camp, right? So for them to tell me that the console's $500 plus I have to purchase with it the Kinect, which is the Kinect 2.0. So it's more impressive technically, but that also means it's more expensive to produce. That'd be why that's a $500 console. And that'd be why I bought the PlayStation. But in order for Microsoft to stay afloat in this generation, they basically had to lose all the major ideas that the inception of Xbox One was meant to drive that console. There was no Kinect by the end. Like, you could still use it, but it was not necessary. There was no like TV watching.
Xbox, watch TV. TV.
Nobody asked for that. That's kind of the issue here. They were outsmarting their audience by being dumb, and that's never really good for tech. That's never good for corporations, period. Basically, the thing here is they shoved a bunch of stuff down our throats that we didn't really want or need. We want to play games. We're gamers. These are game consoles. That's the idea. You know, so they had to cut all this stuff. There was also the DRM thing, the fact that you literally could not share discs, which of course Sony made a meal of that as well at their press conference, very famously.
This is how you share your games on PS4.
Thanks.
All of that stuff combined, that day when they announced Xbox One, I do believe that's the day that Microsoft signed its own death warrant, okay? And they haven't died yet, as of the recording of this, but they're kind of entering last legs territory. Pretty much everybody seems to see that this is dangerous times for Xbox. That's the day that it happened, I believe. You know, and I know that was, you know, over a decade ago, but they never really recovered. 360 was outselling PS3. It just was. They had the momentum. They had the goodwill. And then they hit us with all this stuff that we just don't want, don't need, and kind of angers us, right? But long story short, I do still feel like in the end, Xbox was okay. By the end of Xbox One. First of all, they kind of relaunched 2 new versions of Xbox One, and that was the Xbox One S and the Xbox One X. And you know, they're still doing that thing with the series, right, where it's S and X, and that's not confusing at all. To go into a store because your kid asked for the X and you keep saying S, and the guy's like, "You mean X?" "No, I mean S." Like, that's not confusing. But the S and the X, the 1S and the 1X, it's already confusing.
I'm so confused. These are confusing times. Have some eggs.
They were good consoles. The 1X, I had it. I literally did have an original Xbox One with the Kinect. I did it. And I did have the 1X too. And the 1X was a good console. It was a damn good console. That's the console they should have launched with first, or something like it. It was 4K, first of all. That was cool enough. And you know, the Series X is basically a bigger, badder version of that. That is a tower. It's like a chimney. It's a chimney, black plastic chimney, or a fridge if you like. But all of that said, over the 8 years that we had these consoles, by the end of it, I was proud of Microsoft again. But they lost a lot of people who weren't willing to come back and still never went back. Because who wants a Series X or S? Not many people coming to the market for the first time, or in a long time, for the first time in a long time, are going to buy Microsoft over Sony, or even Nintendo. Microsoft has been a distant third in the market for a really long time, and it's just getting worse. One of the issues here is Xbox Game Pass. When Xbox Game Pass launched and they told me that I could play Gears and Halo and Forza, you know, I was stoked. And then they said all these indies too. And I'm like, I'm not really into indies. Well, now I am. I love a good indie, and it's because of Game Pass. And then they moved it to PC so all the PC people can get in on it. But see, it's not that it's a bad product, because it's a great service. It really is. It's that it costs Microsoft a friggin' arm and a leg. They lose money on the manufacturing and shipping of these consoles anyway, but they also now lose money on software a lot of the time, because it's not going to be economically feasible to make a $200 million game and then to sell it to me for $15-20 or whatever Game Pass was back then. It's not that anymore.
Slashing Xbox Game Pass Ultimate's $30 per month price tag down to $23 per month.
You know what? They're just going to lose money. So it has driven adoption of the console, but it's been for a loss. All of these things, Phil Spencer, I love you, buddy. I love Major Nelson. Come on. I love you guys, but all of this stuff, while it may have seemed smart at the time, it's been a steady decline since that announcement of X1. And also, you know, there's been a lot of choices made since then that have kind of, I don't want to say doomed for all time, because even when Sega died with Dreamcast, hey, Sega's still around, but they don't make consoles anymore. They don't innovate there. I don't know what the future of Xbox is. I do know Xbox One is the worst console that they ever made. And not because the hardware was bad, it was the choices they made. Game Pass, it's a good choice for me, it's a bad choice for Microsoft, right? So, all of that said, the last thing we're going to talk about, obviously, is Series X. I love my Series X. I sure do. I wish more people had given it a shot, but it's just not going to happen. Not now. Not at this point. You lost them, guys. You lost them. 2020 was a weird time, y'all. There was COVID, there was more COVID, there was huddling in your house afraid and playing video games because of COVID. This is all I got for you, everybody. This is the last, most current Xbox generation, the Series X.
And finally, you would dream where you are now.
The Series S. And hey, check this out. We've gone full circle and we're looking at Halo again. But this is a different kind of Halo. This is Halo Infinite, and kind of nobody really likes it all that much. I mean, I do, but I like it, but like it's the same thing. It's like, you know, you say you're eating like a store brand potato chips and you're like, you know, I really wish I could have a nice Ruffle. I don't know, that was a bad analogy, but you know what I'm saying? It's like you compare it to the original thing and it's just not there. And I think that's kind of what's up with most Xbox people. Like, even if you're still devoted and you're still hanging in there and you're still playing the games, which my family still is, they've given me so much, but they've made a lot of mistakes and they've a lot of questionable calls. And I know they've got a new CEO, Asha Sharma, and she's made some cool, interesting calls so far. I'm not disappointed in the Series X. And actually, next to the 360, it's probably my favorite Xbox. But I'm not the one that they've got to win back, and I don't know that they have time to win you guys back if you aren't interested at all still. The landscape is rocky here. The landscape is changing. Consoles are about to be twice as much, it sounds like. They just announced the price points of GTA 6, and it looks like games are going to go up, you know. The world is weird, man. Inflation, world unrest, all the things that make you so depressed when you're doom scrolling late at night. Video games might be a thing that kind of loses a lot of us because we just can't keep up with the prices anymore. Regardless, the Series X and the Series S were all about power. They were about adaptability. And really, it was just kind of trying to shore up the things that they'd screwed up, frankly, with the Xbox One there. Truthfully, early adoption rates just weren't there. As soon as PS5 was announced, that's the one that everybody seemed to want. And as I said elsewhere and earlier, they've been in distant third place for quite some time. Add to it the fact that there were some interesting acquisitions in this generation, yeah? They bought ZeniMax, so basically for Bethesda and that family of developers. And that should have paid off, but then, you know, all of a sudden Bethesda's just shipping all sorts of weird or broken or just non-existent stuff. So not shipping at all. Looking at you, Elder Scrolls 6. They also bought Activision for Call of Duty, and that also should have been a good buy. But it was so expensive. Basically, what they're reporting at this point is that's what caused Phil Spencer and you know, just the corporate structure there to charge more for Game Pass, quite a bit more, which they've had to walk back now. So it's a kind of a continuation of interesting choices. The hardware's better, the delivery was better, but the market forces are also kind of in a headwind here. There's layoffs coming. There's always layoffs. I don't know what to tell you. Again, we're now 6 years into this cycle, and it just doesn't look good for Microsoft. I have to say, if it hadn't been for Xbox and Microsoft and Bill Gates needing to challenge the PlayStation in the first place, we would have had a very different video game landscape these last, 25 years. I thank them for that. I believe, and check me on this, but I've played a lot of Monopoly, baby. I've bought a lot of Park Place. The more competition that we have in these stupid corporate fights, the better that it benefits the consumer, right? Because I'm sorry, but if all we're gonna have left is Sony and Nintendo, it's just gonna be harder for us to get a fair shake as gamers. And that's not knocking them or what they make. It's simply the nature of corporations. They don't shrink and they don't stay stagnant because that means shrinking. They have to grow, they have to gobble, they have to consume, and they have to make us consume so that they can consume. That's just the nature of the beast.
Yummy.
Microsoft allowed me to learn so much more about the indie video game landscape. They allowed that space to grow. They gave me Game Pass, which, yeah, probably that was a mistake for them financially, but for me, I've played so many games over the last, little bit, I never would have played. And also, the original Xbox, while it wasn't a huge success like Mr. Gates would have liked, it won its place in this old crusty gamer's heart. His crusty crab heart. Gosh. I feel like I should wrap this up with like a sum up kind of thing. More stress and fractures and trade issues, and it's pandemonium in the streets. Dogs and cats living together. Okay. I wish I had a hopeful message for you here. If this is the end of Xbox, I salute you. I salute you, Microsoft. Thanks for the memories. Like and subscribe, my dear, dear friends. Now, to finish the fight.